Hi, I had to join about 3 or 4 times. I wasn't getting any sound,
Oh, right, okay.
and
Oh,
Mary put a
same.
message as well saying the same. So I think maybe one of the links is a bit dodge.
Oh, right, okay.
Well, or that, or X's
Well, I
I
playing up.
did.
couldn't. I couldn't hear
Normally, if I
anything.
come on the chat account, it comes on straight on with my mic, but it didn't this time.
But I couldn't hear anybody. So was it only you, Claire, that was talking? Maybe it was just that mic thing then.
Yeah, there was only me talking.
Ah, that's all right. Gosh, you could have been saying anything.
Yeah, and we'll
We could
never
have been
know.
doing it all evening.
No, I think it was the link that was in the notifications to say that a chat had started, and I joined that and tried it a couple of times and nothing. But then I looked back, like through diabetes chat for one of the
Or the other
previous
links.
tweets and used that link, and then it came in, there was sound.
I
Oh,
didn't
right,
think.
okay.
Yeah.
So we'll
I
see how others do.
yeah.
Well, I'm still waiting for Rich. He hasn't joined it yet, but he's co-hosting with me, so I could be doing it on my own.
Oh,
I'm
there's
But
joining.
enough
never
of us
mind.
here.
Are you all okay?
Yeah,
Oh,
how are you?
I'm all right. I'm plodding along as I do.
As you do. Were you at Birmingham on Saturday?
Rich and I went to the tech event at Heartlands first. So by the time we got over to Alexander Stadium to the JDRF event, it was very nearly finished.
Oh,
all right.
okay.
Yeah, they did the walk at the end. That's what I'm actually I'm editing the pictures from that tonight, actually, while we're chatting. Still haven't done it because I went to Cosford yesterday and had work.
Cool. Look forward to seeing them, Mark.
Mhm.
Yeah. Sounded good from the pictures and tweets, but obviously wasn't there.
Yeah,
Yeah, it looked nice and different. Just like having like a longer kind of session, like where you've got like some speakers and then you go for a chat walk. I don't know. I think the walk's always great, like to meet different people that you wouldn't, because you're normally kind of sitting in your little groups in the discovery days. And I remember when Johnny and I did the one walk in Manchester, we met so many people on the
mhm.
walk. Just
Yeah, because you did the one walk last year, didn't you, in Manchester?
yeah, and it was like Johnny met people, and like he met this lovely boy, like, and he was chatting to him for ages. And I don't know, it's just a natural thing, isn't it, when you're walking to talk, and then you're, I don't know, it was lovely, really nice. I think it's a really good idea having a speaker and having different things at that type of an event. It's really good.
So is it like a combination then that they
Yeah.
Yeah,
sort of do a discovery day but just have the walk afterwards?
yeah. How did you find it, Mark?
Um, I wasn't really walking because I was doing a lot of photography because I got both. If you ever saw me at the London Discovery Day, I have two cameras, so it's not the kind of thing I can walk with.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's quite interesting.
How
Sorry,
did,
I'm just having to take a tablet. It's my blood thinner time, because with my leg. Um, yeah, it was quite good, and obviously to use the stadium for which was the Commonwealth Games,
Mhm.
I thought worked quite well with it. Uh,
Yeah, you wouldn't
Was the
normally get a
walk
chance.
just round the stadium then?
Yeah,
Literally
it
around the
was
track.
Oh, that'd be a
So
bit boring. Sorry. I hate that. It's like running
but you've
around a
got to
track
think,
as
but
well. Can't be
it's
doing it.
Alexandra Stadium. It's one of the major athletic meets places for the. I
Oh
suppose.
no, I appreciate that, but the actual doing it,
Yeah,
not that I run much now at all, but when I used to jog a bit, and if you were on some things and there was a stadium and you go around it, and I just found that soul destroying, because you sort of, for me, and it could be just personally me, it just seems like it's never ending.
I suppose.
Do you
Yeah,
know
I
what I
think
mean?
it's.
To do a lap of it, you're just like, no, surely I should be near the end. Whereas when you're like on streets and stuff, you don't know what's around the corner.
Yeah.
That's true, but like
yeah.
I suppose there's pros and cons. Like, is
Oh,
like the
yeah. other
the
people all have the opposite view to me. So
yeah, and there's freedom as well, and not needing to think about where you're having to go, and there's pros and cons.
oh
I
yeah,
I'd I'd agree and disagree at the same time with you as well. I was like,
Well,
yeah, I prefer and more interest in walking than I'm thinking. But you know what? Like when I'm meeting new people, walking that one in Manchester, it was like, although me and Johnny were leading as well, like we were watching where we were going and trying not to get the whole group lost too.
Yeah.
was that at a
See,
stadium as well then?
No, it was all around down at Media City. So we walked out from the where the BBC studios are
Yeah.
and walked over the bridge, and then like so you had the War Memorial to the right, and then walked all along there, and then turned I think about the Lowry, or maybe a bit further, and then crossed and then walked down then another like a whole other kind of down the canal bit, and then
Hmm.
across and then back up. And see when you're talking and
Yeah.
thinking, and I was so scared of going to take us the wrong way.
Well, it's quite funny. They haven't even put where the London one is there yet, and it's less than 2 weeks away. It's still as venue TBA,
Oh, were they?
which I'm thinking they must. I know I'm put a comment on one of the posts. I can't remember if it was on Twitter or Facebook in the week saying, "Oh, do you know where it's starting and ending?" As I'm sure you must know by now. Thinking, well, if people are making plans to go there, do you know what I mean? There's a big difference between if it's, I don't know, starting in Battersea Park,
yeah,
or if it's starting at Pottersfield where it normally does, or whether it's out at Wembley. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It
yeah, yeah.
really, how much time it's going to take if you're booking train tickets or something like that. Be nice to know roughly what area.
yeah.
It's not.
It
It's not.
would, yeah.
It's not on the website. No.
No, because I
Mm.
looked that up because I thought, oh, maybe it's just on the post, was to an old link. Do you know what I mean? But no,
Mhm.
it links through to the current web page. Maybe
Mhm.
they could have put it up today. I don't know. Maybe they were too busy with Birmingham, but I'd have thought it was something that you would put up.
I
But
would
they
say
seem
they'd
quite
go.
slow at putting bits up like that anyway. Do you know what I
I,
mean? Like
yeah, I'd say
Discovery Days and stuff.
they'll go
So
again. They'll be going again from tomorrow, because they'll a lot of the team won't have been in today since Birmingham.
yeah.
But
Oh, yeah. No, I appreciate it's busy, but it just. Do you know what I mean? You just sort of
yeah,
think, oh, thought it
I
would have been
know, I know.
just sort of. I would have thought it would have been there a month or two ago. Do you know what I mean? Not a week ago,
I get you. I get you.
just to give people a chance. But I don't think I can go anyway. So
Uh,
more for other
I
people.
know they had Scotland. They had Glasgow at the weekend, I think, as well. There's been Glasgow recently. There has been Birmingham. Where else? Like
What?
there's
I know
we
Liverpool. Is Liverpool coming up?
just go. I'm trying to log in actually to my laptop and see if I can what I can bring up.
See if it's just me who's incompetent and couldn't find them.
No.
But no, I'm not saying that like you're checking. Like could be me, but definitely last week it wasn't there.
So Birmingham was the 8th, Cardiff was the 2nd, Glasgow was the 2nd, and then Manchester is this weekend, this Saturday, and London's the 22nd. And then we got Belfast on the 21st of September, and then Aberdeen in October.
Have they put the venues up yet?
For Belfast or Aberdeen, you mean, or
Or London?
Oh, let me see now. I'll go. Let me see location. Just do today. Um,
And today's the start of Diabetes Awareness Week, isn't it?
Yeah.
I
that's
know.
true. Yeah, I know. Have any
Oh,
of you read Martin's blog actually? Like, because
I've
it
only just seen it just before I started the space, so I shall have to read it later on.
definitely give it a
Yeah.
read. Like,
I,
I think there's things that we don't know, but this is what like one whole area we just don't know enough about, and it's
is that the one about aging?
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
saw it, but I haven't read it. I haven't had a chance, but I will go and have a look. But it's brilliant news, isn't it, about Graham Norton? Is it Graham?
Oh,
No, not Graham
James.
Norton. James
James
Norton.
James
Norton. Oh
Norton.
And
yeah.
doing
I was
CBeebies.
just going to ask Rose if she wanted to come up and tell us about that.
Oh, do
Rose
that.
is on the
I think we're all
chat.
avidly. There's going to be a lot of adults listening to CBeebies.
I know.
But
We
yeah,
should
there's
take
been
them
lots
out.
of polls going around today on diabetes, age of diagnosis, and the various things, how people are managing their diabetes at the moment. So we are trying to retweet them. Rose, welcome to the panel. How are you?
I'm all right. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Happy Diabetes Week. Yes,
Same to you.
talking of exercise, I'm currently on a 2-mile walk with a weighted rucksack. So if
Oh
I
my
Go
sound
you.
like I can't breathe, I know I'm on a fitness kick.
You've got more
Yeah,
images than me.
that's why. Yeah, so we
Oh,
announced it today. Oh gosh, finally I'm allowed to officially tell people what is probably the worst kept secret ever in diabetes
it's
care.
so exciting.
It is, it really is. So yeah, the episode airs at 10 to 7 on Friday night, and I will be watching it from a live watch party in Cardiff with a whole load of kids with type 1, and I will be wearing my pajamas, which will be lots of fun. And then we're going to be doing an Instagram live straight afterwards with James Norton. So he's going to be joining the JDRF UK Insta page. He will be in Iceland, not in his pajamas.
Wow.
I will
You never
be in
know.
pajamas. Well, yeah, we can hope. We can hope. I did suggest it to his team that pajamas might be the thing, but I don't think they were very enthusiastic about that idea, sadly.
Aw, serious party poopers.
I know. But yeah, it's been really cool and it's absolutely lovely. He got really into it and was designing his own diabetes creature on the day we did the filming. And so it's just been so cool with the headlines today, like in the Independent, the headline was James Norton's diabetes creature is a dog.
I know.
I didn't see any of that. I just read it on.
Yeah,
social.
it's been on BBC, it's been on the Daily Mail, it's been in the Independent.
It's
It's been
super.
absolutely mad.
Oh, brilliant.
So yeah, it's very, very cool.
So chuffed for you, Rose. It's a super book, and I'm surprised he chose a dog. I thought dogs are nice.
Yes, I know. Well, his is a big shaggy dog called Bruce that can get quite sort of slobbery and jumpy. But over the years, he's sort of learned to teach it to behave. So yes. Read into that what you
I
will.
was going to say, slobbery and jumpy.
I'm going to look out for the slobbery and jumpy bits. I find them in my own. Are you going to post some pictures then of the pajama party? Or will you think you'll be able to?
Yes. Yeah. Well, as much as we're able
Yeah.
to. Yeah, there will be sort of press there, and my own kids are coming, so I'll be posting pictures of them, whether they like it or not. So yeah.
Oh, they must be so proud of you. This is exciting. I know they're a bit bigger, but like this is really exciting.
Yeah, the CBeebies bedtime story bit, they actually understand. So they've been so unimpressed with all of my work for years.
You've made
But
it.
yeah, the CBeebies bit, they can actually tell their friends about. And my 9-year-old, bless him, since the day I came back from the filming in London, he's been putting CBeebies on every evening, thinking it's going to be on the
Oh,
telly.
Rose.
So he'll be very relieved that he finally gets to see it.
How long ago was it filmed? Do you like say?
Yeah, it was back in February. So I've worked so hard keeping this a secret, girls. Really, it's been
Rose,
killing
that's
me.
so hard.
Yeah, yeah, way back in the start of February it was done, and yeah, at this hotel in London. So I got to go down for the day, which was really cool, and sort of see it all happen.
Oh, brilliant.
And the CBeebies team are absolutely lovely. And I don't know if you saw in the pictures, but they put a Libra on Teddy.
Oh no, I missed that.
Best thing in the world, yeah. So they've got a
I'd wondered if that was a certain brand of teddy bear that I know is for sale.
Yeah, I wondered that.
I don't think so. I think he is a generic CBeebies teddy bear because the sensor I think was made from a milk bottle top. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it was just when I saw it, I thought, oh, they've done well with the product placement.
It's a good idea.
There is one company that does actually make teddy bears and various other things with the. I've got one with a Libra and a T-Slim X2 pump, and you can have them with. I think they do Medtronic and Omnipod as well.
Oh, that's really cool. It's lovely how these sort of inclusive toys have started being developed. It's really nice for kids to be able to sort of see that representation and have toys that do that for them.
I wonder if they'll put a sensor on Rufus the bear.
I've been saying that I said that to them on at the walk, that they hadn't got a sensor or a pump, but they said it would be product placement. When I was talking to some of the JDRF lot, they said they couldn't do it because it was product placement, which I think is.
Oh, you could make it you could make it a weird generic shape.
Yeah,
I know, I'm just thinking you could make it a star shape. Nobody would make a star shape sensor.
Hexagonal or
But I think he should have tech. Rufus should.
Yeah.
I never realised he was called Rufus myself until yesterday. Till then I said, oh well, you should get the bear, put tech on the bear. What you mean, Rufus?
I know, and then he's a big bear as well. As like he's Rufus, the big bear.
He did the walk.
The areas, do you know, like I know that I could. He can get quite warm if it's a hot day too. I think it was hot. Wasn't it hot at the?
It was quite warm on Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Rufus has patches like for where you would wear your tech and wear and inject and those things. But like there's an app you see that works with those areas that you can like there's a whole like children can give Rufus an injection, check his blood sugars, all those kind of things. And it's and they can actually do it with any teddy bear. Like if they offer up the teddy bear's paw, like and it looks at it and it's a really nice little app. I think with JDRFI, it was in. I think it's something to do with Jerry the bear that they worked together with it and then made it more accessible to far more people, because there was a Jerry the bear that like you could do this with, and then they made it an app, you see, and then so it took it away from a solid like $60 bear to an app that all children could access and use with their own teddy bears.
I knew there was the bear that they used. I mean, I was diagnosed in '89, so I didn't hear about JDRF till I was about in the 2000s myself. But I knew there was their bear, but I never knew there was an app. That's interesting.
It's not that old though, Mark. So it's only in the last number of years, but it's just making these little tiny things easier for smaller children.
Cool.
Like, because you know, like when I know when Johnny was diagnosed, he was given a blue bear in the hospital. Like first before we got no, that's a lie. We got Rufus. We got a kid's sack. Because we came home with a kid's sack. It was Sophie who got a pink bear when she was in for something else. But like it's a known thing to be given a bear in the hospital. But like Johnny got a Rufus. He did definitely get a Rufus.
I never got to do the whole. I never got a bear or anything. It was just I had to inject into myself. Never had all that fun with like bears and oranges and whatnot to injecting to.
I'd say the same, and I think it's unfair. But I will add to that I was an adult when I was diagnosed.
And me.
I was 9,
Oh,
But I'd have
1989.
still taken the bear.
Yeah, and I would have.
I would have as well.
That's just unfair. That's ageist.
What? Oh, they
Thank
just
you,
think we
Rose,
grow up.
for coming on and sharing about your bit of news. Emma's on the company account. She was having problems on the personal account. Emma, can you hear us okay now?
I can, yes. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine.
Hooray! I hate technology and it hates me. But there we go.
Well, of course, I'm on my phone on the diabetes chat account, so I didn't actually see your message on my account till I've logged on my iPad.
This is the problem. I've got too many accounts that I'm logged in on all different devices, and then I thought I'd be smart and try and sync everything up. And of course, something's gone horribly wrong in all of that process. So,
Oh dear.
yeah. But
But
I'm here, and yeah, glad to be here and to be able to hear you all.
I think there's been a few issues today, Emma. We've all had a few.
I know.
There seem to be a
Yeah.
few bugs in the system. So
That makes me feel better.
I couldn't hear. I couldn't hear a thing. Like,
no.
and I thought it was my headphones, and so it's kind of going in and out. And then it may or may not have been. It was my headphones on my side at the start. I knew it was that, but it wasn't. Other things going on. You're not on your own.
Okay, that's good. That makes me feel better. Thanks, everyone.
So no.
Yeah, it's it's the start of a good week. All
I was going
the
to say, is anybody doing much at all for? I have to be honest. I didn't even realise it was Diabetes Week until I saw Rose's tweet about CBeebies.
I'm not doing anything in particular, but I'm looking for new things. So like I was really keen to see Martin's tweet about his blog. That was
Mhm.
really just really interesting that there's like do you know we are, because we have diabetes, we are like how we are impacted by our hypos and our hypers, like it changes, and it kind of makes sense to say that like how we're impacted changes as we age, like, but you kind of don't even, I never even kind of thought about it. So if you get a bad hypo as you're in your third age, it can have some catastrophic uh,
Mm.
effects on your body, on your brain, and like you spend your whole life looking after yourself as well as you possibly can, and then end up in care where you're not given your insulin in time, or you're given it early and then you're not fed, or like you just have this cycle of, I don't want to use the word bad, but like untrained care.
I think it's
Yeah.
very difficult because you forget how demanding it is.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
Martin. Not Martin's here. I
I
know
have
we're in.
sent Martin an invite to speak, but he
Cool.
hasn't replied to me yet. I don't know what's happened to Richard, who's supposed to be co-hosting with me.
Does he have notes?
I've got notes. They were emailed out earlier on, so I will just carry on until he gets here, unless one of you can get hold of the notes off the email and join me to do his section. He's only doing the diagnosis and journey section and helping with the mental health section.
I'm trying to see if I can see them, but I can't see the notes in my inbox.
Let me see what time.
Could you?
I did see them, but I'm just having to log into my email because I'm logged onto a different email account at the minute. Because like having lots of Twitter accounts, you all have more than one email account these days.
But as for Diabetes Week, I'm helping out at a screening event tomorrow at my GP surgery.
Oh, very good.
With Diabetes UK and NHS England. They've got a bus going round that's doing think it's 11 venues in the Black Country.
Oh, brilliant.
Doing BMIs, HbA1cs, lipid testing, blood pressure testing. So I've got to be there at 8:30 in the morning.
Oh, like a one-stop shop.
Yeah. And then Friday, I've got my first ever diabetes professional conference over at the NEC.
Oh,
My proper one.
Claire,
brilliant.
I've got the notes up. So if Richard doesn't join, I'm happy to pick up his bits.
Oh, you're a star.
Okay. Martin has joined the panel. So we'll do a quick hello with Martin and then we'll get started if that's all right. Hi, Martin. How are you?
Hi there. Thanks for that. I wasn't expecting to speak, so I'm not prepared. But as you know, I've published my blog today, which is basically it comes from ATTD 2022 and 2023, and it's something that because of what I found out, it really affected me, and I just couldn't look at my notes or anything for about a year. Well, I've finally got round to finishing it today, and that's published. So basically, it's about older people with diabetes and the problems that we get. And as Mary picked up on, and thanks Mary for that. Yeah, hypos and hypers do change as you get older, and it takes a lot longer to recover. I'm fortunate at the moment that it hasn't affected me, but you know, you never know, do you? But I've got another one in the pipeline, which will be about care homes and the lack of, or not, and that will be published, well, not imminently, but after another article that might be published or not. I don't know yet, so I won't say any more about that.
I don't know. I think it was just eye-opening, Martin, like what you wrote and your reaction to those talks.
Yeah.
Just don't know what we don't know.
It did hit me hard. I mean, there's so much. You know, you get what's called geriatric syndrome, and the diabetes complications can be affected. So you can get cognitive dysfunction, depression, physical disability, and in some cases, polypharmacy, where you have been prescribed too many drugs. And it happens a lot with type 2. You know, they find that a lot of the drugs have side effects. So one drug will affect another, and they find if they reduce the amount of drugs and the types, then often things improve.
Wow.
There's a thing called homeostasis, where any environmental, physiological, or emotional stress, there's a limit to what the body can take. And as you get older, that limit narrows. So whereas a younger person will recover and rebound from that stress quicker, as you get older, that doesn't happen. So you know, things like that. I didn't even, to be honest, as I say in the article in my blog, I didn't realise that. You know, I've got to the age I am, but I haven't really thought about what happens as I get older. With
I think that's a normal thing, isn't it, though? Because we
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
Creeps
So
up on you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
I went to the lecture last year, and then a similar one this year, you know, the first one, as I say, it knocked me for six. I just couldn't look at it. I just blocked it out, really. I did look occasionally, and I thought, no, I'll leave it. And then I went back here, and there's another one about sarcopenia and diabetes, which was by Professor Sinclair. And basically, that can affect people. And sarcopenia affects the muscles, and basically it's muscle wastage.
Mm.
So, you know, so sarcopenia, frailty, and diabetes have all features in common, and he was linking those three together, and you know, saying that one thing can affect the other, and things you don't think of, like if you're too high and you've got a lot of hypers. I've gone off. Hello?
No, it's all right. I don't know what happened, but you're back on
Oh,
now,
right.
Martin.
Anyway, I was. Anyway, there was a study about the gait of older people with hyperglycemia. And what happens is, as you get high, it causes your gait to go forward. So they show the diagram of the axes. So the forward motion axis, you tend to lean forward. So that can make you fall over more. So you fall over, you break your hip, you go into hospital, and it's a decline. You know, it's not a very good, nice thing to think about. But you know, one thing leads to another, and you know, it's not a brilliant thing to look forward to. But basically, it was highlighting that, and insulin resistance, which is also an intrinsic feature of aging muscle development of sarcopenia and also diabetes. So
Do you know,
enough of my waffle. I'll let Emma get on.
we need to find out more about that, like after your next blog, then, and maybe
Yeah.
get you on and do one yourself.
Did you go to the one, because I saw one at ATTD this year, and it was on cognitive function, and not necessarily because of the diabetes causing it, but just the decline in cognitive function and diabetes and the effects.
Yeah. No, that's one I've still got to get to and look at. I've been pretty busy.
That's a joyous one.
Yeah. I've been pretty busy, as people in the know, on writing another article, which hopefully will be published soon, which I won't mention by name. But I've finished that. I've finished the one today. I'm still working on the other one, which is about care homes. So hopefully, with all these things, you know, things are getting normal. You know, things are getting moving. And so far, what I've posted, it's had really interesting comments from people. Dr. Johnson Golding has said he found it very interesting, and you know, the fact that it was from a patient's view was good as well. So, you know, if I can change things little by little, you know,
that's all any of us can do, Martin. Really,
oak trees, acorns grow. You know, so you have to start somewhere. So hopefully, this will be a start.
I know. We'll share it.
Thank you for that, Martin.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, it's just gone 25 to 9, so we'll get cracking with our guest speaker chat. Claire, get your teeth in. Emma, if you can hear us again now.
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. Tonight on Diabetes Chat, we welcome Emma Doble as our guest speaker. Emma has type 1 diabetes, and we will hear more about her diagnosis and journey in a little while. In her professional life, Emma has been a patient and consumer coordinator at Cochrane UK, and is now the patient editor for the British Medical Journal. She's been that since 2018 and has had several articles published. She has also led on the patient and public partnership strategy since 2020. In January this year, she also founded her own company, CEE Health Limited, which offers a platform for patient and public involvement. Emma is also a DDoc voice and can regularly be seen at diabetes community events. Welcome, Emma, and what a pleasure it is to have you joining us tonight.
Thanks, Claire. What an introduction. I don't think I could have written that myself. I'm very impressed with that.
Well, the information was courtesy of Google.
Google knows me better than I do. That's a good start.
Okay, well, what we're going to do now is our 90-second questions. So it's just a quick fire question round just to help us get to know you a bit more, those of us that don't know you. What is your occupation?
So I am a patient and public partnership strategy editor. That's my official title at the BMJ. And I'm also director of C Health, a platform which is connecting patients with lived experience and companies and organisations looking to work in healthcare.
When were you diagnosed and how old were you?
So I was diagnosed in 1994. And I was 4 at the time, 4.5 when I was diagnosed.
Do you finger prick or use smart technology?
I'm very lucky and have smart technology. So I have a Dexicom that I use in a hybrid closed loop with my pump.
If you have to finger prick, do you change the lancet every day?
No, who on earth does that?
Nobody, I don't think.
I would be lucky if I changed it once a year, even when I was using it.
What is your go-to hypo treatment?
Marshmallows.
Ooh, not thought of those
Oh, they're so
before.
good. One marshmallow is 5 grams of carbs, and it's just like the perfect. I can just have one. I don't need to think about it. And it's really hard to like overeat marshmallows because you can only put so many in your mouth at one time.
Good idea. What do you think is worse, feeling hypo or feeling hyper?
Probably hyper nowadays. Yeah, I think that feeling of like your legs feeling like lead or your blood feeling like treacle trying to go through your body is really unpleasant.
What is one thing you like about diabetes?
Meeting all of you guys and many others.
And what is one thing you don't like about diabetes?
Oh, there's so many. The fact that I can't switch it off. I'd love to be able to just press a button and just turn it off for an hour or 2 or a day or a week. Well, as long as possible.
Yep. Do you love or hate the smell of insulin?
Oh, I hate it. It's horrible. Reminds me of hospitals.
Okay, and the last question for this section. If you're on a desert island, what 3 things would you take but will give you all your diabetes equipment so you don't need to take them?
Okay. And do I get unlimited supplies of marshmallows?
Yeah, they'll count as your hypo treatment.
Excellent. That's a tough one. I feel like I'm probably taking a notebook and a pen. Does that count as 1 or 2? Because I feel like
1.
I really find that writing just helps me process things. It helps me like come up with ideas. It helps me helps my mental health just thinking through things and being able to write them down. So I don't know if I could live without a pen and paper. A good book. I don't know what type of book though, but a good book. And can I bring a friend? Does that count?
You can
I'll
bring a
bring a
friend,
friend.
yes. We'll let you.
Thanks, I'll bring a friend.
Thank you for that, Emma. Right, I'm just going to pass over to Philippa now, who's going to just touch on your diabetes and your diagnosis and
Sounds
journey.
good.
Hello, Emma. How are you?
Hello, good. How are you?
I was just thinking when you were laughing about changing your lancet. I think that's one of those questions that we have just to check that you're really diabetic.
Yes, that you're normal.
Is that trick question? If you said, "Oh no, I change 4 times a day," we'd all be like, "No,
Get
false,
out.
get rid." So it's just verification. We know you.
Good. I'm glad I
truly have
passed the test. I'll
Yeah,
take
you passed. You passed. Right. So I'm just going to chat to you a little bit about your diagnosis. But with you only being like 4.5, do you remember that much about it?
I remember the day having to go to the doctors, and I suppose I sort of remember odd parts of that day. So I remember that we had my favourite meal for dinner. So we had macaroni cheese, which was my favourite meal, and because I remember thinking, there's something's not right. Why am I getting this privilege of having my favourite dinner, and why am I getting to choose? what that is. And I remember sort of walking up to the GP surgery and sort of feeling a bit like there's something not right here, and I'm not really sure what it is or why I'm here, but there's something going on. But other than that, I don't remember a huge amount, to be honest. Strange the odd bits you do remember.
Yeah. So did your parents suspect something then? Or had they an idea it was diabetes, or did they just think there's something not quite right? We'll take Emma to the doctors just to be checked out, and we'll let her have a nice tea because we're going to take her to the doctor.
So my mum was telling me quite recently, actually, that they had noticed a lot, all the common symptoms, and that they'd actually been watching some sort of documentary on TV about hospitals. And in one of the episodes, there was a child who had type 1 diabetes.
Oh my
And so my
goodness.
parents were watching this thinking, that's Emma. Emma has all of those symptoms. And so my mum says they were pretty confident that they knew that's what it was when they took me up there.
Mm-hmm.
And so the conversation with the GP was kind of, we think this is what she has. Can you test her? And so I didn't have any of that, any back and forth. I think it was quite a quick, yes, this is what we think it is, do a blood test. So yeah, they did think that they had an idea before we went.
Did they know much about type 1, or did they just know from the documentary, oh, going to the toilet a lot, tired, drinking lots? They knew the symptoms without knowing the implications, or had they a knowledge of it? Are there other people in your family, etc., that have got type 1?
No, so nobody else in my family back then had type 1. And so, no, they didn't know anything, to be honest. They'd literally just seen. I think the thing my mum was saying is that she remembers watching the show, and you know how all these shows at the end go back and say, oh, look,
Yes.
that they're healthy and well and whatever. And so my mum was like, we'd seen that, so we knew it was something that could be treated, but they didn't know any of the kind of what that meant.
Mm.
And for me, one of the craziest parts of my diagnosis story is that apparently when I went to the GP, that was on a Friday afternoon. And so the GP said to my parents, that's fine, she's got type 1 diabetes, take her home, don't give her any sugary juice, and bring her up to the hospital, to the specialist clinic on Monday morning. So they sent my parents home with a 4-year-old child, a diagnosis that they'd never heard of. And back then they couldn't just like Google on, Google what this was or anything. And they just sent my parents away and just said, basically, just wait until Monday and we'll figure this out on Monday. And nowadays, I just can't even imagine what that would have been like.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I thought as an adult I had a similar story, but it waited a bit longer than the Monday. But with a child, that's unbelievable. I always thought with an adult is because they sort of assumed it'd be type 2, but doing that. So when you went to the hospital, were you an inpatient there, or did they just deal with you as outpatient because you'd been picked up, I'm assuming, before you were in DKA, and I'm hoping you didn't go into DKA over the weekend?
No, luckily I didn't. And actually the team ended up, I think at that point there was so few children, type 1 diabetes was quite rare back then, and so actually what ended up happening was my mum got a phone call from the diabetes team on the Monday morning, at 8 a.m. saying, we've got a note and we'll come round to the house. And so my consultant and my nurse, who I were amazing, and I had all the way through until I was 18, came round to my parents' house, and they just did the whole consultation at home with us. And so I never ever had to go into hospital for any of it, which was very lucky, to be honest.
Oh no, that sounds amazing. I'm now
NHS in the 90s.
Well, no, I was 95, so just showing my age because I was an adult and you were 4 years old. So there's quite a gap between us in age, but similar era and doing like that. So I'm assuming just because of the era you were diagnosed on, did you start off on mixed insulins?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And did that change much within the family? I don't know if you've got siblings or not, Emma.
I have a younger brother, so he's 2 years younger than I am.
But do you think it changed your habits as a family, like fitting round injections?
I don't think so. I think again, it's probably hard for me to really remember. I think my mum and dad would definitely be quite strict with my brother in that, I remember it's like going down the cereal aisle, and it would be like, no, we're not getting, the sugary
Yeah.
cereals because Emma can't have that, so we're just not going to have that in the house and things like that.
Mm.
But I think for us, that was just normal. That was all we really remembered. I suppose the kind of dynamic in the house was more, my dad always says he remembers, really saying to me, you need to have your injection, and me just saying, I don't want to. And he just said, I don't want to give you either, but that's not an option. And,
Yeah.
I think there was probably, there was a bit of resistance back and forth, but I think generally we all just kind of figured out how to kind of live with it in the household together.
Yeah, modelled along. And I suppose being at that age as well, you really wouldn't be that aware of what was changing if things did, because it'd just be life at that time.
Yeah,
And as
a
a
I think
4-year-old,
that's
you get a lot chosen for you anyway, don't you?
yeah, exactly. I think that's always one thing that I'm always grateful for, that I was diagnosed when I was so young, because I don't really remember life before type 1. And so for me, it's always been part of me and it's been normal.
Mm.
But I think one of the only times that I remember that moment, I think I was maybe 5 or 6 at a kid's birthday party. And they were, towards the end of the party, there was this one child who was kind of kicking off and causing mayhem. And the parents said to the child, if you don't start behaving, you're not going to get any cake. And it came to birthday cake time, and eventually the child sat down and it was fine. It came around to cake time, and of course everybody else got a slice of cake and I didn't. And that was normal back then. We couldn't have things like that. And I was used to not getting cake, but I think I started to be like, this doesn't seem right. I've sat here and I've behaved and I'm not
Yeah.
getting a piece of cake, and that child is only not getting some because he's not behaved. And I remember thinking, I'm different. That makes me different. And I don't quite know why that makes me different or how it makes me different, but I'm definitely different.
Yeah. No, it's quite tough. Must have been quite tough, that sort of, not being naughty, but you're being punished in the same way. So obviously, what age were you when you moved from injections to pumps?
So
Or how long through? I'm not asking you how old you are, Mel.
Yeah. I went on a pump just under 10 years ago now, so 8 years ago now. So I was on injections for a very, very long time.
Time. Yeah, you were on that. And were you fine with that? I'm saying fine, as fine as one can be, injecting oneself with
Yeah.
drugs every day.
Interestingly, I was fine on the mixed insulins. Where I really struggled was when I went to high school was when we switched to doing carb counting.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I just think for me, that was just the worst timing to make that switch, because I'd been so used to, taking my injection in the morning and then going off to school and not having to think about it, not having to do
Yes.
anything. And then, I only ever did my injections in the safety of my home. I didn't have to think about it. And then I made that switch to having to, carry an insulin pen with
Yeah.
me and having to think about, I need to do an injection at lunchtime. And I just found that so incredibly hard. And so that went on for a long time of kind of me just feeling like I just didn't want to deal with it. I just wanted to avoid it. I just didn't want I didn't want to be known as that kid, and I didn't want to go to the special room to take my injection or anything. So yeah, that was tough.
It's funny you should say that, because I can't remember when I went from mixed onto MDI, but a bit like you're saying, I always think for quite a few years, because I got no real education with it at all, that actually all I was doing was the same as using mixed insulins, but I was injecting more often.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I didn't use the facilities because I hadn't got the education to manipulate MDI, how I learnt to manipulate it later on.
Yeah.
And so, like you're saying, it was like I was injecting at work, whereas I'd never had to before because I injected before breakfast.
Yeah.
Inject it before dinner.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, definitely. It was like it gave us all this freedom, but then we just weren't we weren't used to it, and we just,
Exactly.
making that adjustment. I think I remember it being like, oh, this is amazing, you can have all this sweet stuff now, and I was a bit like, well, I don't really care, I haven't really had it. I don't really, it's not like I've been craving sweets and chocolate for the last 10 years of my life. I've kind of just got used to it, and
Oh, I was
I
going to
just
say, I'd
didn't
already been
see it.
eating those, so it made no
Yeah, that's
difference.
it. I didn't know what I was missing out on, really.
Oh, I did. And carried on. Oh no. So what was the decision or what happened that made you consider going onto a pump?
So when I was kind of in my early to mid 20s, I always knew I wanted to have children. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, I kind of got to a point where I knew I just wasn't managing well on NDI. And I think I also started to meet other people who were using pumps.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a bit of a combination of being open to it because I wanted to improve my diabetes management, but also just being able to meet and see other people using it and asking those questions that were things that I worried about, also really helped me making that decision.
Yeah. And I think that is so useful, because I know I turned down a pump. I didn't want it. I didn't want to wear one. And it was meeting other people who did that, well, not normalized it, because it's not really normal, is it? But do you know what I mean? Answered your
No,
questions,
totally.
all those things that are a big issue in your mind,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that before you go onto a pump, those things overtake any benefits of it, because you're kind of like, those are the things you think of naturally as the first things you think about. And it
Yeah.
was only meeting other people that I was like, well, actually, there's a lot of benefits here, and those
Yeah.
might outweigh even if some of those things I'm worrying about are true. I think the benefits will outweigh. I should say I also had an amazing team who
Mm.
they've been trying to get me on a pump since I was about 14, 15, and I'd really fought against them. And they said that when I was kind of open to the idea, they said, well, let's just try it. You can go on for 6 months, just see how you get on. You don't have to stay on
Yeah.
it. And I think that was another big thing, because I think I did feel this pressure of like, I need to go on this and this is it forever. I need to be happy and go on with my life, and I was just not ready to make that big leap of faith onto tech.
Yeah. Sounds like we had the same team. I think my consultant used to mention it at every appointment, just in
Yeah.
case I suddenly leapt and said, oh yes, I think I'll do it now. And it'd be like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
And then in the end, it was like, just try it. Give it 6 months. And if you
Yep.
don't like it, you just hand it back.
Mhm.
It's not a problem.
I would
And he
love to
said,
know, of all the people that were told that, how many handed it back after
well,
6
he said
months.
to afterwards, because I was like sold within about 24 hours of putting my pump on. But he always laughs. He used to laugh and say, I've never had anybody yet hand one back.
Oh.
Oh dear. So so you've been on a pump a while, and it sounds like, from what we're saying, it did help with your management and
Yeah.
was a positive move for you.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
how long was it before you got sensors as well?
So I've only had sensors for 2 years now. Just
Oh my
about 2 years
goodness.
now. Yeah. Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah.
I'm saying that, like, now I'm sort of thinking, I'd always imagine people have had them longer than that. Like with Libre
Yeah.
coming in,
Yeah, I never
then
had
started being
Libre.
funded.
No, I never had anything like that. I literally was just on finger pricks with my pump.
Mm,
Um, I think again it was that fear of like making the switch, and I just think it wasn't necessarily something that I was seeing a huge amount in my clinic, and so no, I've only been on sensors for 2 years now. So I went from having a pump and finger pricks to being on a hybrid closed loop, which I think is probably not
yes.
necessarily the natural jump for people, but yeah, and that was how
But
I went.
and I think there also is that, if you're doing okay how you are,
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Why fix something that isn't broken, sort of thing?
yeah.
And so, as you're saying, it's relatively recent, which I know 2 years isn't that recent, but it is. Um, how did you find that, going on a sensor and doing hybrid closed loop at the same time? Because that sounds a big jump to me.
Yeah, it was.
Trusting two things at once. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. And I think there's elements of my diabetes that I find the closed loop really helps with. So, like the suspends with hypos and things like that. I first went on to hybrid closed loop when I just had my daughter, and so things like breastfeeding with hybrid closed loop with the suspend just made life, so incredibly easier. I think now, yeah, it's a tough one. I feel like I still have to work really, really hard at it, and my team even recently are sort of saying you are working really hard to get close to that coveted 70% time in range. And so I think I'm probably going through a bit of a, this is still hard. The tech is amazing, and there's definitely elements of it that make life easier, but it's also still a lot at times.
Yeah, and I always say to people that it's not a plug-in and play system
No.
for anybody, and we're all different. So, some people are going to have an easier ride than others, and it still does take work, but at least you've got something that's got your back.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
just helps.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's that. So it sounds really positive. So do you think there are, for you, because you said it sort of helped and you still put in a lot of work, which I think we all do, some more than others though, I say, as I've sat back not doing anything much today at all. But going on to the technology, were there any negatives for you? Because you said that, the initial thought of it obviously wasn't fantastic. Was it quite a natural thing in that it was very positive, or were there any negatives with you, whether it was having to carry the tech, the look of it, the being visible, the carrying your diabetes with you, that sort of thing, the mental burden?
Yeah, I definitely think with my pump, I think the first 6 months I found really, really hard. And I think it was just, I'd been on injections for such a long time. I knew how my body worked on injections. And it was like to me, it was like a completely new diagnosis.
Yeah.
Because I had to learn my diabetes all over again. And it would do things that I would be like, wait, what? That's not what we agreed. That's not what we signed up to do. And so I would spend a lot of my time worrying, thinking back, questioning myself, doubting myself. And I think a lot of that came from the fact that I probably put a lot of pressure on myself to think I made such a big decision to go on this pump. Like the decision making process was so long and so hard and something I really thought about. And so then when I got it, I thought, right, this needs to be amazing. Like this needs to be it. And I just think I put all this pressure on myself that like now I've got this pump. Now I just need to have a perfect target, need to be in range with everything. And of course that doesn't happen. And so I found that really tough. And I think once I learnt my body, like learnt the pump, learnt how we would like function together, it then was such an amazing kind of take off a little bit from it. But that 6 months was definitely hard work.
Yeah.
I'm not too, it doesn't really, that's something I really worried about, was where the tech was going to go, what was it going to look like, were people going to ask me what it is? And I feel like that's that was the last thing that I've ever worried about from the minute I put it on. I was almost a bit like, I don't, it's my pump and that's it. End of
And
conversation.
people just don't notice things.
No.
It always used to amaze me when I was injecting, that I could be injecting at a table in a pub, and I swear the people who I was out with for the evening didn't realise I'd injected.
Yeah, so true.
Because
exactly.
they're not looking for it, and it's children who notice.
Oh yeah,
Pesky
definitely.
children, they're eagle-eyed, and they'll be staring at you from the table across the way and pointing, whereas the people sitting next to you are totally oblivious.
No clue. That's so true.
Oh, well, thanks for that. That was really interesting. So I'm going to pass you across to Claire for more of the main chunk of the evening about you and what you do. So, Claire, are you ready?
I am.
I
Thanks,
have
Flipper.
no problem.
Emma, we all know the importance of self-advocacy regarding our diabetes treatment and management. Can you tell us how you got involved in diabetes advocacy and how it's helped you?
Yeah, I love this question. It's such a big one, but that's always a good start. So when I was kind of in my late teens and early 20s, was just really struggling with my diabetes, and I just didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to talk about it. I just wanted to lock it in a cupboard and run away from it. And I think after probably 10 years or so of really struggling with it, I just got really frustrated. And so I went to my diabetes team and I just said, am I the worst person that you see managing their diabetes? Am I the only person that feels like this? And they just said, no, there's loads of people out there who are exactly the same as you. And I said, well, where are they? Why are we not able to have a conversation? Because I just felt like that was something that I would really benefit from. And so after many, many months of back and forth, I decided to set up a peer support group on Facebook that would be linked with the clinic. And so they would sort of refer people to the peer support group, and I would meet lots of other young people and we would chat and possibly meet up. And I think through that, I started to realize that there was lots of things that us as people living with diabetes were worried about, frustrated about, were getting annoyed about, that the diabetes team could actually do something about, and that they didn't. It was maybe more that they just didn't know what the challenges that we were most focused on were. So I started going back to the team, my diabetes team, and saying, look, we've been talking about this, and this seems to be something that's really not working or not great. Can we change it? And so some of those things were literally like, we used to get so annoyed that you know when you'd get your annual blood test screening and then you'd get your eye screening like 3 weeks later, and you'd be like, why can't we just do this together? So it would just be things like that. And through doing that, my diabetes team started to realize, oh, this is quite helpful, and you've got quite a lot of things to bring and to share and things we can learn from. And so we sort of created this little sort of collaborative working where we brought ideas to them, they made changes, and eventually they invited me to the Scottish Government to talk about what we had done and talk about peer support. And I think in doing that, I met other people living with diabetes who were advocates, who were really kind of pushing for whether it was tech, whether it was access to services, and I thought this is something where we have a real voice, and actually no one's going to do this for us if we as people living with diabetes aren't going to stand up and share what's important and get involved. So that was my kind of first step into realizing that as somebody living with diabetes, I had something to share, I had something to bring to the table, if you will, and that actually it could make a real difference.
Thank you for that, Emma. Some of us on the chat tonight know you as a D-Doc voice. For those people who are on the chat who don't know what this means or what it is, can you tell them what being a D-Doc voice is?
Yeah, so D-Doc is an organisation which brings people with lived experience of diabetes to all of the big medical diabetes conferences all over the world. So D-Doc Voices is a huge community now of people living with diabetes, all types of diabetes, including type F, which is what we class as friends and family, from all over the world, lots of countries. And we all now create a huge big community. We support others to go to conferences, we go to conferences ourselves, and that's the main kind of focus of D-Doc, is to bring in people with lived experience into these kind of research places where these are where lots of conversations are happening around what's the latest research, what's the latest evidence, where should policy be going. And so D-Doc allows us as people with lived experience to be there, which is amazing, both in person and virtually. And DDoc now is actually much more than that. So we have a DDoc blog, we have a DDoc Academy where you can come and learn more about diabetes advocacy, or learn more about research and how to get involved. So it's a real kind of international community of lots of amazing people.
Can I just add there that I think one of the things, just because I was a DDoc voice with Emma at ATTD, having spent a few hours at City Airport waiting for a plane.
We did.
Yes, we did. That it's not passive going to the conferences, that actually a lot of the questions in the seminars, I think quite a proportion of them are DDoc voices.
Yeah.
Instilling
Definitely.
the lived experience into what is a scientific conference, and things that they will be hypothesizing about, but from lived experience. And I know they still have to do the theory of it, but it isn't just attending, it's participating in as well.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. And in other areas, sorry Claire, I'm now butting in. So with your advocacy, and you've done the Scottish Parliament, were there any other organisations that you were part of? Because isn't there the International Youth Leaders? I can't remember the official name of it, Emma.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been involved with lots of different organisations in kind of patient partnership, and so I did some work with Diabetes Scotland, with a group of young people back in the day, which was a project. I have done some work with JDRF. I'm always going to naturally call it JDRF, but I mean breaking through
Twitter and X. It's always Twitter to me.
Yeah, exactly. No, we will transition, Philippa. We will get there. This one we will work really hard at, and we will transition. They are JDRF though until October, so I don't feel too bad in saying that right now. And I've also done some work with the WHO, Cochrane UK, which is a big kind of organisation that looks at getting lots of evidence to say what should be treatment decisions, how should decisions happen. And then more recently, I've been involved in some of the guideline committees. So that's where, for instance, in the Scottish Government, they will look at, we've just done the diabetes in pregnancy guideline. And so that's where clinicians, researchers, policymakers, everyone comes together and says, right, what are the key questions? What is the key evidence? What should diabetes and pregnancy care look like in Scotland, with all of that taken on board? And so I've been part of that, which has been going on for the last 2 years, of what should that care look like. So that's again really being actively informing what policy looks like as well. So there's all sorts of ways.
I was going to say that, and also with the BMJ.
Yeah,
getting that, because I know when I did an article for the BMJ, it was Rosalind at that point.
Yeah,
and I know she was such a fantastic help,
absolutely.
and such a reassurance for your imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So I know you do a fantastic job in that. How did that come about?
Well, actually, that came about because I saw something on Twitter, or X. There we go. See, we're doing it already. Saw something on Twitter, which was the BMJ tweeting saying, we're looking for patients to write about their lived experience. And I was like, oh, maybe I could write about peer support and how that's been such an important thing for me. And the imposter syndrome kicked in, and I thought, oh, maybe not. And then I think one very late night, I thought, why not? I'm just gonna submit a form in. So I did, and I wrote an article for the series called "What Your Patient Is Thinking," and that was published. And a few months later, I get a phone call from one of the BMJ editors, and who said, you wrote this incredible piece for us in the series, and we actually now need an editor to manage the series. Would you be interested in coming on board? We just really liked your approach with it. And I was like, okay, why not? And so that's where my kind of journey into the BMJ started. I just wrote something for them, and they just seemed to like my kind of way of thinking around it. And so that's how I got my job with them. So I work freelance with them. I work 2 days a week with them now. And my job there started off just managing that one series. And now I manage all of our patient and public involvement and partnership work across the company, which is amazing. And I'm really, grateful to be able to do that.
And they do a fantastic job at it as well.
Thank you.
I have to give BMJ a round of applause for that. Anyway,
Oh, thank
Claire,
you.
I'll pass back now and butt out.
Thanks, Philippa. Well, that actually answers my next question,
Oh,
Emma.
sorry.
So we'll go on to the one
You're in
after
sync.
that.
I like it.
In January, you founded Sea Health.
Yeah.
Can you tell the community what gave you the inspiration to start it up?
Yes. So I suppose I'm always or often approached by companies, businesses, organizations saying, oh, we really want to get patients involved in research or panels or conferences or events or writing papers or whatever that might be. But we can't find any. Can you help us kind of find some patients in this area? And we do a little bit of that at the BMJ, but our kind of capacity to do that is not massive. And so I just felt like there was a real need to provide patients, people with lived experience, a place to be able to say, I'm here, I want to get involved, I'm interested in doing more in my kind of advocacy journey, and then being able to kind of match those people up with these businesses or organizations or companies or individuals who are looking for them. I just found that there's a real gap between patient communities, patients as individuals, and people who are looking to work with us. And I think that for me just didn't really make sense. I don't quite understand why there's such a gap, but I just saw that there was and felt that this could be something to really bridge that.
Thank you for that, Emma. That sounds like a real inspiration.
Thank you.
Do you have any suggestions on how people can get involved in advocacy or patient involvement within their own community?
Yes, absolutely. So my first kind of tip or my first point is always to share your story. And whether that's just with individuals, whether that's on your social media, whether that's writing a blog, going out to your local media, whatever that might be in any way, shape, or form, sharing your experience is really the first step. Because like I say, many people who are looking to involve patients in policy, are looking to involve them in research, often that's where they tend to go. They tend to go and see who's talking about their lived experience. And that's how often I find patients when I'm looking for people for our work at the BMJ. If I need to find a person living with asthma, often I'll go and look at blogs, I'll go and look at patient sites, I'll go and look on Twitter and see who's talking about their experience. Because that for me is the first flag that people might be interested in getting involved in more things. So that would be my first tip. I think my second one is to just start to go out there to see, coming to some organizations that are doing this and doing this really well. So, BMJ, if you want to take a bit of a step into the research world from that patient perspective, come and have a look at our site, see what we're doing. We have a whole page on patient and public partnership that gives you lots of different ways to get involved. Like I said, guideline committees. So in Scotland, that's SIGN. In England, that's NICE. England and Wales. They're always looking for people to join their committees to talk about their experience and to inform policy. And then also like funding bodies, so places like NIHR, so the National Institute for Health Research, has people with lived experience involved in all of their reviewing and all their grants, and those are often paid for your time. So there's lots of different places out there. And then my third one would be go to places like Breakthrough, T1D/JDRF, or DUK, or other kind of national voices, these charities, third sectors, because they are often very much involved in a lot of this work themselves. And so sometimes being connected with them helps you, going to them and saying, I'm keen to get more involved in this. They can often kind of match you up and make sure that you're in the right places, or at least talking to the right people to get more experience and to be able to do that.
Thank you for that. The next
can
topic
I just add a question, if that's all right,
Of
Fran?
course you
You
can,
know me,
Pippa.
you're not going to shut me up now. I've said I'll take part. So I appreciate what you're saying, Emma, and I agree with your being involved in things and that. But what are, to you, the warning signs that maybe it's not a good partnership to be in?
Ooh,
because I know I've had a couple of things that I have been involved in that I've withdrawn myself from.
Yeah.
Just because I don't want to give them the ability to say that they consulted with somebody when actually I just was allowed to sit in the room.
Yes. No,
so
absolutely.
From your point of view, what would be your expectations and what would be your warning signs? Because I think that's really important, that you've not got to just be grateful to be invited into the room.
Nope, absolutely not. And I think that's such an important point, Philippa. And I think for me, one of the biggest things is I think people have to be really clear on their expectations and sharing and being transparent about how they're going to involve you. I think all too often you see requests out there, come and join this advisory panel, or come and join this PPI, patient and public involvement group. And there's no kind of insight as to what that group is there for. What role does that group play?
Yeah.
And therefore, what kind of power does that group have in decision making? And so I think making sure that you're really clear on what the expectation is, both on your time, but also on what you are actually able to contribute and to give to it. And I couldn't agree more. I think if you're ever sat in a room or on a Zoom call where you feel like either you're not welcomed to share your thoughts, or even if you do, it's a sort of a smile and a nod and a yes, let's move on. Remove yourself, absolutely. And I think it's a real shame that does happen, probably more often than we would want to see that happening. But I do think that is again where the strongest tool we have in our belt is our voice, and if we have to up and leave to remove that, then that is actually quite a powerful thing to be able to do. So yes, really, just be very clear and be very kind of open with yourself as to what you're getting out of things. I think often, the reason I do this work is because it helps me. That's number one. It makes me feel like I can manage my diabetes better. It makes me feel like I'm contributing something to a wider problem. I enjoy seeing other people getting involved in this work and finding a passion in it. I think if you're ever in a project that you don't feel like you personally are getting anything out of it, I would say it's not worth it, because especially if you're doing these things voluntarily, which often we are, you have to be getting something out of it. And that could be many things, but you have to know that you're getting something for yourself out of it.
And I think one of my two things, not this on the interview, is at what point in the project are they asking for input?
Yep.
If it's at the end of it,
oh no,
actually, no.
Yep.
And the other is knowing if it's your area.
Yeah.
It would be like somebody asking me about, or me sitting in on something that was about teenagers.
Yes.
I have been a teenager, but I didn't have type 1 at the time. Yeah. I'm not the person to be there. And I think sometimes people are asked onto things because they're a name that people might know.
Exactly.
I'm not saying it's necessarily a popular name, but just because you've been involved in something else, you'll get asked. And I think it is quite important signposting them to other people, or just saying, I'm not your person for this, because it'd be like me sitting on the pregnancy guidelines. I've never been pregnant. Didn't have a clue. So
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's partly why I created See Health, because I think so many people were coming to me and asking me, oh, we want to get somebody with type 2, or we have this, can you answer some questions about tech access in type 2? And I thought, no, but I know of a heck of a long list of amazing people who could answer that question for you. And often from the company and organization's perspective, there's always that, but we know you. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not enough. I'm not the person to ask. And so that's where I'm hoping See Health will kind of sort of bridge that a little bit more.
And one really good example of that I had was about injectables. And then they were talking about type 2 and the different things, and I was saying, I can't comment on that.
And
they're like, but it's the same thing. If you're injecting insulin sort of thing. And I'm like, well, I can't assume that. Do you know what I mean? I have
completely.
It's a totally different headspace. It's a totally different pathway to being on insulin, I would imagine. I have I'm not saying that people with type 2 there is no choice, they need it, but it's usually a progression onto it. Whereas with type 1, well, you have it, or even not much alternative. But it was just the assumption that it was all just about putting a needle in and injecting.
Yeah, totally. And it's just not.
And that was one of my big examples of, now you've got, I can't say, I'm not saying, in fact, I wouldn't say, which I think one person got really annoyed with me about. But it was just like, that's not my experience. I wouldn't like to.
Completely.
I'm not going to comment on somebody else's behalf when I have no knowledge of that at all. No, that's really interesting. Thank you for that, because I think that's quite important.
Yeah, absolutely.
When it's good to be involved, and sometimes just being grateful to be there isn't enough.
Yep. No, absolutely.
Sorry, Claire. So, Claire, now
Okay, before we go on to the next section, if anybody has any questions they want to put to Emma, if you type them in the chat box, then we'll ask her for you. But the next section we were going to touch on was mental health. What does mental health mean to you, Emma?
I mean, mental health is such a big thing that all of us, have to navigate our ways through. And for me, my mental health has been so tied in with diabetes that I feel like I never have one without the other. And so for me, it's been a real juggle of like figuring out how to manage that and how to make sure that I'm being as open with myself about it. I think often, as with my diabetes, I liked to think that if I just shut away my worries, concerns, anxieties, struggles, that they would just go away. And I think that's been a whole journey to sort of say, no, I need to be a bit more open and a bit more willing to have these discussions, which even now are challenging.
Thank you for that. What support are you aware of that is out there to help you or to help others? Support groups or peer support initiatives, things like that?
Yeah, so I mean, peer support for me has always been a massive thing. And I have always found that peer supports have been an incredibly supportive and helpful place for me when I've been struggling at all with diabetes or mental health challenges. And I think finding your community, finding your tribe, finding your little network is amazing. And I'm really lucky now to have some incredibly close and amazing friends who also happen to have type 1. And I think finding those people in your life is amazing and makes such a difference. I think also we have been involved with some of the DigiBeat work on mental health, mental well-being, and I think there's much more to come in this space of support, especially before in that kind of stages of child mental health challenges with diabetes that I think we all probably live in without necessarily realizing it most of the time, in just trying to live, trying to manage, trying to cope, and finding ways and resources and tools to do that in the best way. So yeah, I think there's lots out there now, but I think there probably could be a lot more as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think I agree there too. Just conscious of the time. Are you okay for another 5-10 minutes?
Yeah, of course, no problem.
Okay. We wanted to touch on the stigmas around diabetes. What are your thoughts regarding this, and how does it make you feel?
Yeah, I mean, stigma is something that I'm sure we've all experienced to varying degrees, and it's really tough. And to be perfectly honest, and I don't know whether it's now I'm just sort of a little bit numb to it, or I've just got better at ignoring it, but most of the stigma that I faced was when I was a child, and I think at the time, it definitely made me feel very isolated, very alone, very very different, which I think as a child and a teenager, that's the last thing that you want to feel. And so I found that really difficult. And I think unfortunately, fortunately, I learned that my only way of kind of battling against the stigma was to educate. And so whenever anybody would make comments, I sort of grew this ability to just share exactly what the correct answer was. And so sometimes I think that maybe came across, I think often people were like, oh, where's this little kid coming out of nowhere being very serious and very like, no, that's not right, this is what this is, that's what that means, and you're wrong. And and so and I think that's something that's a kind of a skill that I had to learn as I was growing up, and I didn't always get it right, but I think it's the only way for us to tackle stigma, because I just think, unfortunately, no one else is going to take this battle on for us. And so it's going to have to be something that comes from us within the community, and therefore something that we all kind of support one another with, as we battle through against a huge amount of stigma that still remains.
Okay, thank you for that. Right, I have 2 more questions. I don't know whether Philippa or anybody else will have any
Whether
more.
I'll hijack it again. Well, no, I have a question, because I am going to. Now you've given me that in, Claire.
Carry on, Philippa.
Emma knows me. She knows there was no. So I totally agree with you that I feel that it's really got to come from the community in a way. And I'm not saying that doesn't mean that other people can't help outside it, but I do feel we are. How do you feel, or over the time that you've had diabetes, has it improved in the healthcare setting? Because I can only say personally, I would say actually that's probably where I've experienced most stigma.
Yeah, I think again, I feel like I've been quite lucky in that I haven't experienced a huge amount of stigma in the healthcare setting, and I can't give you any explanation or reason as to why. I think often, again, through my job, I get to work with lots of healthcare professionals, and I do think there is a changing, like the narrative is changing around diabetes. And I think the Language Matters movement was a huge part of that. That was something that people were really starting to be like, oh, I hadn't thought about this, or I hadn't realised that was not,
Yes.
not acceptable or whatever. And I think in turn that has then helped in moving the conversation on with stigma. So yeah, I think, and again, this is very UK centric. I think there's probably a lot more work to be done internationally.
And I also think not necessarily within the diabetes services themselves, or in my experience, but it's some of the at GP surgeries, or if you're at hospital for another thing.
Yeah.
And I will be honest, I'm the first person when somebody says something which is off key, I'll tell them how it makes me feel. They can't argue with it. Can't, do you know how scared that makes me feel?
Mm-hmm.
You said that.
Mm-hmm.
I said I'm type 1 and you're asking me if I do it with diet.
Yeah.
And I'm about to have an operation with you.
Yeah. Yeah, not great.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But yes, I and like you say, I think the language matters, and I think that's helped in other areas as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Once it's highlighted for people with diabetes, it has to trigger in you, if you're a medical professional or anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this applies to other conditions as well, be it asthma, a skin condition, eczema, anything. It's so applicable across the board.
Yeah, that's definitely one area that I'm really lucky in, kind of being somebody living with diabetes and in the diabetes community, but then working in a job where I get to work with people from all sorts of health areas, because I think you get to see all too often how things happen in the diabetes communities and then other health areas go, oh, that's really good. Let's take that and slightly adapt it for our condition. And I think in diabetes we are actually we tend to be the first people to do anything, whether in the kind of advocacy world, and that's a real kind of privilege to be part of that, to be honest, because there's lots of people out there with all sorts of other conditions that they just don't have that same level of community support, drive, willingness to kind of jump in, put their head above the parapet. So yeah, I think it's definitely we tend to be the guinea pigs.
Yeah. And I will just add that I'm sure a lot of things that are said are unintentional and are not said in a way that the person is actually realizing how it comes across. But I think that sometimes if you just highlight to somebody, I mean, we've all had things in our lives like that. Somebody says to you, you think, oh God, I've never thought of it like that.
Yeah, that's so true.
And next time you're in that situation, you think about it. So I think every little helps.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, one of the last two questions is, what tips and advice would you give a young child with diabetes or a parent of a child with diabetes?
This is probably not surprising to anybody on this call that knows me, but my first thing to say would be go and find other people out there in the world who have the same experiences, have the same interests, same passions as you do, who also are living with type 1 diabetes. I think that can just be so reassuring. It's such an incredible source of comfort and support. And whether that's a young person, child, or a parent, I think it kind of translates across all age ranges. Peer support is something that we all benefit from at different times in our lives. So I think that's always my first point of call for anyone.
Thank you. And my final question is, what are your hopes and aspirations for the future for yourself and diabetes care and for diabetes management?
Ooh.
Just a small last question.
I know, just a small one. I feel like for me personally is just to keep positive about things. I think sometimes I can get really dragged into a space of feeling quite lost or a bit stuck or a bit fed up with stuff. And so I just hope that I can keep myself in a place where I can keep being an active contributor to the diabetes community, I think sometimes I feel like I'm a newbie here. There's lots of people who have been in this world for a long, long time. And despite the fact I've had diabetes for a long time, this is still quite new for me. So I think just being able to be here, hopefully continue being here with all of you and talking about diabetes and sharing that with the world is definitely a goal of mine. I'm also really keen to see other health conditions making some moves in the way that we have in diabetes as well. So that's probably where I hope I will be. In terms of diabetes management, I suppose the easy answer is to say that I hope that we all get a fantastic new pancreas one day and that we'll all not even have to worry about it. Even then, I feel like we'd still all meet up and have to have weekly chats, to talk about our new pancreases. but maybe one day. But I think honestly, maybe a slightly more achievable hope is that in the diabetes world, I think we've made some really huge progresses in terms of involving people with lived experience. But for me, I don't think we've gone far enough. And I think there's much more to be done. I would love to see somebody living with diabetes at a Partha level, like a national role in somebody who's able to work with the community, who's part of the community, to work at that policy level, work at that research level, work at that clinical level to say, this is what's happening in diabetes in the communities, this is what needs to happen, this is what the priorities need to be, and this is how we need to do things, and being able to be part of those very, very high level conversations where decisions are made about us rather than with us. So that is something that I would love to see in the future, and hopefully not too distant future.
Thank you for that,
Brilliant.
Emma, and thank you for a really interesting evening and a really interesting chat. If people want to reach out to you and get in contact with you, how do they do that?
So you can either contact me through C Health, so we are chealth.org, through the website, there's a contact us form there. My email is also on there that you can contact me directly. And send everything that way, and I can redirect if it's anything other related to BMJ, if it's anything related personally, I can direct it all from there.
Thank you very much for that. I'll put those on the tweets in a moment.
Thanks, Claire.
Philippa, have you got anything just to finish off with?
No, just to say thank you very much, Emma. Lovely chatting with you again, and hopefully get to see you at some point in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for
I
having me.
think that goes for us all,
Oh,
Emma.
thanks. It's been so nice chatting with you all, and hope you all have a lovely week ahead. And yeah, I'd love to see you all very soon. So fingers crossed.
I think we need to organise an evening or a weekend where we haven't got any diabetes events going on, but we just all meet up for a social.
Excuse me, that would be dangerous with you there, Claire. Tom and Rich were there. I don't know if I could cope.
I'm not saying nothing.
Oh, I love it.
Thank you once again,
Oh,
Emma.
thank you
Thank
all.
you. It's been brilliant.
Speak to you soon.
Bye.
Speak to you soon. Bye. Well, guys, that was one interesting evening. Hope you've all enjoyed it. If anybody wants to come up to the panel and have a chat with us now, we've got open forum for about 3/4 of an hour, talking about Diabetes Week, people's stories if they want to share. Anything else that we decide we want to talk about, please just come up to the panel.
No, that was really interesting. And I know that it's still out there on YouTube and on Facebook. But did you see the talk that Emma did at the DUK professional conference as a DDoc voice?
I didn't see that.
It's
That was what I was
worth
going
a
to ask
look.
her
It
about,
is,
but time overtook us.
and you had a co-host who kept interrupting. Apologies. But no, that is really interesting about taking part in things and where patient involvement should be, not necessarily where it is. So yeah, if anybody wants a good listen and watch, but you can listen to most of it. But all the talks that were there, I think there were 4 or 5 people. There was Dawny, Mary, Emma, Nikki. Oh goodness, and I think I'm forgetting one person, and I can't think. But they were all brilliant, and it's definitely worth a watch back if you haven't already. Big up to them all.
Okay. I noticed we've got Sean, we've got Dan, we've got Nikki, we've got Linda, we've got Sarah on the chat. If any of you want to come up to the panel and have a chat to us, please request the mic.
I thought it was a really great
Anything
talk.
you want to talk
I thought
about?
it was a really great chat with Emma and just a whole other.
I think we could have gone on all
Yes.
night.
I'm seriously laughing. I had to like I can't, and I was the one who muted everybody. It was my phone acting really funny, so I just came off the panel because it just was glitching. So I came off the panel totally. So just in case I would ruin the chat again, just with my tech. But such an interesting chat, and one of those like that, like we're involved in different things, but when you've got Emma's multiple hats, it's just an interesting perspective, isn't it? Like
she's involved in so many things. I take my hat off to her because I don't know how she finds the time. She's got children as well.
I know.
I keep forgetting.
Well, I didn't know that till tonight.
I keep forgetting that whenever I speak to her. I always think, and then she'll sort of say something. I think, oh my God, I've forgotten you've got 2 children as well.
Exactly.
Well, wait, I knew she was a D-Dot voice, so I'd gone on to Google to see if I could find any more information on her to do the chat notes. And I was amazed at the amount of things that she's had published.
Oh, yeah.
She's amazing woman.
She's a little powerhouse, that woman is.
Yeah. But just her knowledge and her perspective, just as it gives it just sheds more light on all the things like that. Like it's not just peer support. Like it's like what you were talking about like what is what are the warning signs when it's not right. Like that was, I thought that was the most interesting for right now for me as well. Like because we can be asked to be involved. We want to be involved in so many things, and we are involved in many things. And when we are, then it's good to have a bit of self-reflection about like, is this actually worth my time? Because
yeah,
what does it look like when it's not right?
and I think that is so important, and
Mm.
I will beat that drum. That it is important that patients are involved, but only if they're not just a tick box.
I know, but how do you walk away? Well, I know how you walk away. I know how you walk away.
I sort of fed back. On one of them, it was in the meetings, it was like, oh yeah, but they never changed or did anything to what the voices were. And one of the charities was sort of involved because there were a few issues with what was happening anyway, but that's beside the point. And so I wrote to the committee, I wrote to the charity, and I put out that, you know, I would love to be involved if I felt it was making a difference, but I felt my presence was being used more as a rubber stamp that patients had been involved when actually I was just present. Because do you know, like, you can't pussyfoot around. I wasn't being rude, but I was saying it how I felt.
Yeah.
And I know somebody else who was there as a patient, and they were like, yes, but if we go away, there'll be nobody there.
I know, yeah.
And I said, but I said, I think that's what we need to do. But I said, you know, I can't persuade, you know, it's your choice. But I, in all conscience, didn't want them to get a rubber stamp because they'd had patient involvement when actually they were ignoring it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were giving
Yeah.
it lip service.
Yeah.
So, and I also, as you'll know, Mary, I look at it, it's volunteer work. I'm not being paid, and usually the only person in the room who's not getting a salary. You know, they may not get a salary for that particular meeting, but they are paid by a health authority, or,
Yeah.
you know, they're
Yes.
they're not taking a holiday to be at that meeting. Let's put it like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I have a thing that if I wouldn't accept it from an employer, I'm not accepting it as a volunteer.
Yeah. I think it's
And if you don't treat me, not a treat, that sounds like somebody's saying nasty things to me, but do you know what I mean? The respect for deadlines, time,
information in advance.
communications.
Information in
Yeah,
advance that you
exactly.
can
Being
comment on.
involved and, you know, finding out about things where, well, how does everybody else know about that but me?
Mhm.
Then actually, how important do you feel I am? And I'm giving up my valuable time.
Yeah.
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 You've got to respect yourself in these things, and it may mean that you're not involved in some things and there's other things. But I've had, not that I've been involved as much as Emma, do not get me wrong, but I've been involved in some amazing things that have opened up opportunities and have been really interesting, and I've loved. And I've been involved in other things where I've been interested in whatever, and then I've been just a bit disappointed at points, and I have walked away from a couple of things.
I think I
Uh,
need to do that in some
but
places.
yeah, but it's yeah, I think it's important that you don't just give a voice.
Yeah.
Not a voice, give them the ability to say that they've spoken to people and
I
taken
think,
on board when they haven't.
and I know I've heard these things before, but I think the way you guys talked about it tonight as well, Flipper, like you and Emma, just like sometimes you need it almost written in front of you, like that you can see yourself in the room, see what's going on, see what that looks like, and go, that's happening to me, or that's not happening to me. It's not quite like that, so it's okay. Or look for the things. So like it's just the conversation was quite informative.
And it's not always going to be easy from the start. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you have to justify yourself and your position there. But you know, if you're just being given lip service and nods and, oh yeah, that's a really interesting point, and oh yeah, maybe we should do this, and you have a whole discussion about something that's going to happen, then it's just never actioned, and there's no reason why it can't be. So it's not that you're asking for, you know, something that's just impossible, but just slight things. So yeah, I think it's that you've just got to value yourself as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
because yeah, it is on top of a day job